Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing an amazing Pokemon that you can use to climb Elo in the Remix Cup, and that is Shadow Dusknoir. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Fict, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, why is Shadow Dusknoir so good? This comes down to the coverage that this Pokemon has to offer. It runs Shadow Punch and Dynamic Punch, and Ghost plus Fighting is completely unwallable coverage by any Pokemon currently in Pokemon Go, meaning that no matter what, in any matchup, you can hit for at least neutral. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. We're off to a nice start in game number 1, leading Pangoro into Guzlord. Guzlord staying in this matchup. Guzlord knows Pangoro is very frail, has to debuff itself if it wants to deal any meaningful damage, but a bait will help out Pangoro quite a bit in this matchup. Dragon Claw is going to be shielded. There's a switch out from the opponent into Claydol, but Claydol is going to take so much damage from the Pangoro. Pangoro firing off the Night Slash. That's going to be no shielded. And now out comes the star of the show, Shadow Dusknoir. Dusknoir is going to be no shield in the Rock Tomb. That does do quite a lot of damage. But Dusknoir now exits with a Dynamic Punch loaded, and that is going to immediately pressure that Guzlord. No matter what your opponent has on their team, it is impossible to wall this coverage. The only Pokemon that I believe can do that is Hisuian Zoroark, which isn't in Go yet, which is a Ghost plus Normal type. In comes Diggersby. Diggersby more than happy to absorb energy here. In the back, the opponent has their own Diggersby, and they are going to regret that switch in. Close combat, massive damage. Diggersby absolutely devastated. And now Fict gets to bring in his own Diggersby, and he will look to shield at the Scorching Sands, and just look to continue to overfarm. He is now one off the back-to-back Scorching Sands, which means this game is over. Scorching Sands will KO the opponent. In comes the Guzlord, and Diggersby is going to make quick work of this very low health Guzlord, as Scorching Sands will be able to deliver a Game 1 win. We move to game number 2, and it's actually a tough lead, leading Pangoro into Charjabug. Safe switch into the Shadow Dusknoir, answered with the Guzlord, and again, this is where that ghost fighting coverage is so nice. It's something I identified when using Grumping, is you just can't wall off this coverage. Here the opponent is forced to throw energy. If Fict wants, he can shield and force the final shield, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So Shadow Dusknoir, on its own, it's a Ghost type that had a Dark type switched in, and it's able to force both shields, and now in comes Pangoro. Looks like Pangoro unfortunately did get denied there on Bring In, as Dragon Claw is going to connect, yet it missed a whole Karate Chop, which is really rough because then Pangoro would have been able to outpace here. Pangoro forced to now go down a shield. There's a switch out into the Charjabug, and the opponent's going to be sad they gave up swap when Charjabug gets absolutely destroyed by Diggersby. This is such a dominant matchup because obviously Volt Switch is going to be double resisted. X Scissors will hit for neutral damage, but with absolutely no fast move damage to speak of, Charjabug is going to find it difficult to gain any ground here. Diggersby more than happy to absorb another X Scissor if it means it can exit with more residual energy. So the X Scissor is going to be getting Diggersby low. Diggersby, nice job over farming here, just shy of 100 energy. Fire Punch is going to be able to KO that Charjabug. In comes Jellicent. Jellicent answered with Pangoro. There's a switch into the Guzlord, but Guzlord will immediately be knocked out by a resisted Night Slash. And there's the boost! Pangoro going off here. This boosted Night Slash will be devastating to the Jellicent. They're forced to fire off energy. And now Diggersby gets to very comfortably close out this game. Diggersby has the Scorching Sands loaded and ready to go. And Diggersby will be able to knock out the Jellicent and take the win. We move to the next match, Pangoro into Carbink. This is honestly a pretty solid matchup as long as shields are up. Opponent does save switch into Venusaur. There is not a grass resist on this team, so Venusaur is actually a difficult Pokemon for this team to deal with. Pangoro is staying in, but Frenzy Plant will absolutely rock Pangoro. Pangoro no shields. Oh my goodness, down it goes. In comes Dusknoir, but losing switch advantage is very unfortunate here. Dusknoir is going to commit the shield, going for the one shield farm down. Opponent is more than happy to concede that farm, but they probably bring back in the Carbink because Carbink, it's going to be taking neutral damage here, but Carbink is very, very bulky, so it's going to be able to shake off these hits and continue to try and farm down. This is a bit unfortunate because unfortunately the Carbink ended up being aligned onto the one Pokemon that it honestly didn't want to see. We see a banking of the move and a switch into the Diggersby, so a Dynamic Punch is stored for later. Here's going to be the switch and a Moonblast debuff. Diggersby answered with a Primeape, but the Moonblast debuff is devastating. Fire Punch into the Primeape is going to be shielded. Primeape tries to go for the CMP Tide. This is a tough call to make if you're the Diggersby. Diggersby shields, it's the close combat, and now maybe a sign of life because the opponent, by throwing a Moonblast, they desync the switch timers. Fire Punch gets the shield. There's the combo. In comes Dustnoir. Dustnoir, Shadow Punch is going to pick up the knockout. Back in comes the Carbink, but they just can't get the Moonblast they need, and despite them having switch, with a beautiful combo play, Ficht is still able to get the win. We've got a mirror lead in the next match, Pangoro versus Pangoro. Tough call to make here. We will see a shield, and it is going to be a Night/Bait. He's farming up. He's going to be baiting back. Will the opponent decide to respect the close combat here? Yes, they will. I believe we just saw a Night/Boost. Let's go, Pangoro. This Night Slash is going to be no shielded. It is survivable even at +2. The opponent is going to go for a Night Slash of their own. They get a boost, but he's able to win the lead on 1 HP. The opponent, they bring in their own Dustnoir, and this is scary. He's now going to send in his, but look at the fast moves here. Astonished, deleting both Dustnoirs. Ficht is going to shield, looking for a farm down. He exits very low, but with energy. In the back is Corviknight, and oh boy, Shadow Dustnoir going on an absolute rampage here. Dynamic Punch is going to connect, making another Shadow Punch, and this is way too much health gone. They shield, and they're just going to get hit with the Diggersby. Good luck, trainer. They realize there's no win con, and they will resign the match. Pangoro into Claydol, a pretty nice matchup. If the opponent is not running Scorching Sands, then this is really nice for the Pangoro. Because usually, when I was playing Pangoro lead yesterday, I was more often than not shielding this, respecting a Scorching Sand. So he actually is not going to respect it. And it's a Rock Tomb. That's a really nice call. That's a really nice call there. I did get Scorching Sands once yesterday, but I really like the call here from Ficht. The opponent ends up shielding. They snipe with a Charm Shadow Alolan Ninetales. That's going to be answered with Diggersby. Diggersby will be able to hit for super effective damage with Fire Punch, but unfortunately got the one-turn bring-in. Man, please fix the game. One-turn bring-in. I just don't want to see it anymore. It's so frustrating. Now we're going to see an aggressive pivot into Shadow Dustnoir, getting a full farm down. Dustnoir leaving with energy loaded. In comes the Claydol. Dustnoir looking for the farm down. Claydol could have potentially tried for a farm down there. I still think the Mudsup would not have knocked out. They get a debuff, and oh no, it's an Alolan Raticate. I don't care, this is debuff. That's going to be a full one-shot. The opponent bringing out the spice, but Dustnoir sends it back to the Pokeball. We get the same lead in the next match, leading into a Claydol. There's a save switch into a Togetic, and Togetic is going to be answered with Shadow Dustnoir. Dustnoir will be committed to shield here. Togetic baits with a Psyshock, and that is a bit of an unfortunate shield from the Dustnoir. Dustnoir firing off Shadow Punch. That is going to be getting Togetic pretty low. Will we see a double shield? Yes, Dustnoir going to double shield and farm down. This should be the Gleam, and it is the opponent full sending. Dustnoir down 2 shields, but with this unwallable energy, the opponent is going to have a fun time trying to get through this Pokemon without giving those shields back. As Dustnoir is going to make a second Shadow Punch, this is going to KO the Claydol. They will end up shielding. Can they get the farm down? It's a simultaneous KO. In the back, they have Whimsicott. And Whimsicott is not sweeping this endgame. There's just no way. In comes Pangoro. Pangoro going to launch a close combat. This will inflict very nice damage onto that Whimsicott. Whimsicott shields. And now, this is easy cleanup for Diggersby. Whimsicott, it's an interesting core breaker based on its typing, but I'm just not a believer based on how frail it is. I believe it has a nickname in the competitive circuit, which is Flimsy Whimsy, and that's for a reason. Because this Pokemon, it is just not taking the hits that you want it to take. 2 Seed Bombs are not KOing Diggersby. The opponent is just going to resign the match because they realize there's just no path forward for them in this game. Pangoro into Furret, the absolute dream lead. Opponent is going to pivot out into Tinkaton, and we actually see the Dustnoir getting brought in here. So Ficht is making the read that this is a Diggersby bait out. He could have sent in the Diggersby, and Diggersby would have done an amazing job of shutting down Tinkaton, but he's making the read that this is a bait out. This is only going to be a Bulldoze, so this is a very easy no shield, but that's the call that he's making. Bulldoze does get the debuff. The debuff, in my view, is actually better here because it's going to give the Furret less farm. Because even without the debuff, you weren't making a second Dynamic Punch. We will see the shield from the opponent. And yeah, due to that debuff, they actually get less farm, so the debuff ends up being worse for them. Pangoro, one turn friggin' once again. Come on, man. Swift does quite a lot of damage. In comes Claydol, and it actually wasn't a Diggersby bait out. So that is a little bit unfortunate. But the nice thing here is that Pangoro will be able to get a lot of value against this Claydol. Back-to-back Night Slashes. That's huge damage. Claydol going to be firing off a last-second charge attack. Diggersby gonna no shield. It is gonna be the Ice Beam. And now it's Furret versus the world for the opponent. And Furret obviously does have the ability to boost up and hit for super effective damage with Trailblaze. We will see the shield from the opponent. No Scorching Sands debuff comes through. Tough call to make. Will they go for the Trailblaze here? He says no. It is the Trailblaze. Diggersby unable to make the Scorching Sands, forced to settle for the Fire Punch. And now can Pangoro survive the boosted Sucker Punches here? Pangoro gets to the Night Slash. This needs to be enough. Night Slash into the Furret. Does KO. What a close game. Oh my goodness. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Pangoro into Guzlord. Opponent switches out into Claydol, and that's going to be answered with the Shadow Dustnoir. Dustnoir got a no shield, knowing that Rock Tomb, it will do a solid amount of damage, but it's not enough to warrant a shield. Back-to-back Shadow Punches reached. If this Mud Slap doesn't KO, that'd be so good for this Dustnoir, and it doesn't! The Dustnoir barely hanging on. Give us both shields, trainer, and that's exactly what they're going to do. So 2 shields down to flip swap, but Guzlord does not do well against Diggersby. Scorching Sands is going to connect. That's some pretty significant damage. Opponent is going to make a nice switch out and a catch onto the Guzlord. Guzlord, of course, absorbing that Night Slash, no problem, but Pangoro will immediately remove the Guzlord from the field of play with the well-timed close combat. The Panda is basically 1 HP, so it'll need to pivot out here. Diggersby is going to have to sweep. In comes the Claydol. Diggersby can't quite get to the move. It will get outpaced, and we will see a shield. It is going to be the Rock Tomb from the Claydol that does get shielded. Diggersby is going to get a full farm down. No, the opponent able to save it at the last second, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Grumping. Grumping, unfortunately, with these Scorching Sands being debuffed, Grumping's going to take this damage very well. We will see the shields from the Diggersby as Grumping fires off Dynamic Punch. Diggersby would love to reset the debuff, farming past 100. There is the clock up, but Grumping has Dynamic Punch. This is super effective. Can Diggersby hang on? The answer is yes. Diggersby at the back-to-back moves. You just have to avoid a catch from the opponent. Scorching Sands connects. There's the catch attempt onto the Claydol, and this game will be a win. Nicely played there. That was a tricky endgame being debuffed, but Diggersby able to clutch victory. We move to the next match. Ooh, we've got the Battle of the Dark Fighters here, Pangoro versus Scracrafty. Scracrafty will now probably be running Upper Hand. Upper Hand is an incredibly cracked move. Close combat is going to be shielded, and he's actually going to pivot out into Diggersby. Diggersby should be able to live at Upper Hand here. It is base 70 damage, but it's still going to do quite a lot. Diggersby now going to make a Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands is not going to be enough to pick up the knockout here. We will see Scrafty able to hang on. Diggersby makes the Fire Punch, but that's nice counting by the opponent. Opponent is going to be firing off their Upper Hand to pick up the KO. This could set up a nice Dustnoir farm down, and he has the exact same idea. Unfortunately, Scrafty is going to make it to a foul play, so we will see the shield, but Dustnoir up to Astonishes can go very, very far in this meta. In comes, oh, a Swampert. That is not the Pokemon I was expecting to see. Swampert going to be hit with a Shadow Punch. Will Shadow Punch allow a farm down after? It looks like the answer is yes. The opponent is going to have to pivot here. They should realize they're not surviving 3 Astonishes. They're staying in. They go for it. They realize they're not getting there. And it's Skeledirge in the back. Skeledirge, Shadow Punch, massive damage. They get farmed down. And that Swampert is not getting that move. And Dustnoir just completely swept an endgame. picking up a terrible lead in the final match, leading into Clefable. The safe switch into Shadow Dustnoir answered with Furret. Dynamic Punch is going to get this Furret extremely low. Furret is going to end up committing the shield. Furret decides to throw energy here. A big mistake from the opponent. They could have gone for the farm down, because now they end up wasting a lot of energy, and a boosted Swift, it's fine. Pangoro is already useless considering that there's a Clefable on the opposing team. Pangoro now going to get a very nice overfarm and going to play to the CMP tie, hoping the Night Slash will be enough. This is close to the range where it KO'd last time. We're going to see a switch into the Diggersby as Clefable gets brought back in. Clefable throwing energy is interesting. This does desync the switch timers. They go for the Moonblast, and they're actually staying in, so it appears Diggersby is a core breaker for their team, and Pangoro has energy. We do see the Scorching Sands debuff come through, so now Diggersby probably gonna let this go, to be honest, and that's exactly what's going to happen, because the debuff Moonblast not nearly as threatening in the back. It's a Bastiodon! Oh, Trainer, Bastiodon. There's just nowhere for it to run. There's the switch to Pangoro, and Pangoro, if he wants, he can shield and leave with a close combat loaded. Oh, he's actually just sacrificing the Pangoro and just gonna set up the Diggersby sweep. Diggersby just gonna farm up to 100 energy, and Bastiodon, it's just so slow. It doesn't do any damage either. In comes Clefable. Clefable going to be hit now with the Scorching Sands. That's gonna get it low. We see another debuff, but there's still a shield intact. The shield is coming up here as the opponent will go for the Swift. It's going to be a race to the finish, but Diggersby is going to take this win with a Fire Punch. Down goes Clefable, and that's game over. All in all, the Pangoro plus Ghost core continues to be an extremely strong core in day number 2 of this meta. This core just doesn't really have a lot of breakers. I think the main thing you would have to look at for a breaker is basically Shadow Pidgeot, as obviously Pidgeot is able to resist the Astonish fast move pressure and just hit for massive super effective damage with Gust onto the opponent's Pangoro. So as long as you're not seeing Shadow Pidgeot, this Pangoro plus Ghost core is just outrageously good, and Dustnoir, its coverage is really, really nice. In other metas, I have really liked the pacing of Hex. In this meta, I think the fast move pressure of Astonish is really, really nice on the Shadow Dustnoir, because it really allows you in a lot of situations to fire off a move and then get a farm down, exiting with energy to be able to threaten other things. So overall, if you're looking to climb, I think this is a really solid team to do so in the Remix Cup. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.